Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we unpack the hidden infrastructure that really powers our digital world.
And today, we're getting into something you use every single second you're online, even if you've never once thought about it.
We're talking about a silent war, a conflict being fought over the very code that lets you watch, create, and share video. It dictates the quality, the speed, and even the legality of, well, pretty much everything you stream.
Right. And this isn't a battle you'll see in the headlines. It's a kind of Cold War fought in code repositories and patent offices.
On one side, you have Google, the behemoth, the owner of YouTube.
And on the other, a decentralized, almost invisible, but incredibly powerful volunteer project called FFmpeg.
Exactly. And the stakes here are not about market share or app downloads. This is about who fundamentally controls the plumbing of the internet. We're talking patents, open standards, and, the soul of the open web.
So for you listening to this deep dive, our goal today is to really give you the full picture of this technological realpolitik. We're going to unpack why FFmpeg is so critical.
We'll analyze Google's long-term strategy with things like VP9 and AV1 to redefine what open even means.
And we'll expose that core tension between corporate power and open source idealism, all playing out in this really treacherous world of software patents.
Okay, so let's start at the foundation. Before we can even talk about Google, we have to understand the true backbone of internet video. We have to talk about FFmpeg.
It is the essential toolkit. I mean, it's hard to overstate its importance. It's an open source project that started way back in the year 2000.
Right, in the name. It's Fast Forward and Moving Picture Experts Group.
Yeah, that's a nod to its origins. But today, I mean, it handles so much more than just MPEG formats. It's almost everything.
I think that's the key thing for people to grasp. Most have never heard of it, but their digital lives would grind to a halt without it. It's the definition of mission-critical infrastructure. So can you break down what it actually does? Because processing video doesn't quite capture it.
Not at all. Its core function is to let any developer, or any company for that matter, to codify, decode, transcode.
All the codes.
All the codes, yeah. Transmit, reproduce. Look, it can handle practically every known audio and video format in existence. Think about it like this. You upload a video to YouTube, right? An MP4.
Okay.
That service then needs to create maybe 10, maybe 20 different versions of that file. One for your phone, one for a 4K TV, different bandwidths. FFmpeg is almost always the thing in the background doing all of that heavy lifting.
It really is the Swiss Army knife of digital media. That's the classic analogy, and it's perfect. If you're converting a file, resizing it, streaming it, you are somewhere down the line relying on FFmpeg.
And the main tool in that knife, the big blade, is a library called libav codec. That's the engine room. It contains all the incredibly complex math needed to turn raw video into compressed data and then back again.
And who uses it?
Oh, everyone. YouTube, obviously. The VLC media player on your desktop. OBS Studio, which basically every streamer uses. Handbrake for ripping DVDs back in the day.
Yeah.
And still for converting files. They all lean heavily on that one library.
The scale is what gets me. It's just staggering. Our sources had a key fact that really puts this into perspective. As of 2023, the FFmpeg project estimated that its code executes more than, get this, 10 billion times a day.
10 billion. Every single day.
It's just a mind-boggling number.
And that number is so important because it doesn't just make it ubiquitous, it makes it a foundational utility like electricity or water. And that scale is exactly why its legal integrity is so incredibly important.
You mean if someone successfully sued it over a patent?
Exactly. If the project were ever compromised by patent litigation, it would instantly cripple the functionality of thousands of major platforms around the world. It would be catastrophic.
Okay, 10 billion daily executions, a massive footprint. And that brings us to Google. Because after they bought YouTube in 2006, they didn't just buy a video platform, they inherited a problem.
Yeah,
A huge one.
a multi-billion-dollar problem, yeah. And it was all about patents and money. See, back then, the undisputed king of high-quality video was a standard called H.264.
Great technology.
Fantastic technology. But it was controlled by a consortium called MPEG-LA, which held this massive, tangled web of patents covering it.
And a patent portfolio like that means one thing for a company that wants to use the technology, especially one streaming billions of videos a day.
You pay, and you pay a lot. MPEG-LA had these commercial licenses, and the fees were, well, for a small company, they were a huge barrier. For a company like Google, running the biggest video platform on Earth, those costs were astronomical. and they were only going up.
So Google's motivation here, at least initially, wasn't some kind of, high-minded idealism about an open web. It was.
It was pure business.
Mhm.
Self-preservation. They had to break free from this financial chokehold.
Yeah.
They couldn't be in a position where they were essentially paying a tax to a competitor for every single video view on YouTube.
So they launched a campaign to do just that.
A very deliberate strategic campaign. It
Mhm.
kicked off in 2010. They bought a video tech company called Onto Technologies, and they immediately took its main product, the VP8 codec, and did something radical.
They open sourced it.
They released it under an open license, yeah. They bundled it into a new format they called WebM. And that was the first real shot across the bow of the patent consortiums.
Then a few years later, 2013, they followed up with VP9, which was even better, more efficient.
A lot more efficient. But the real game-changing move came in 2015. Google realized, I think, that they couldn't win this war by themselves. So they formed the Alliance for Open Media, or AOM.
And this wasn't just Google. This is the fascinating part.
No, this was the key. They brought in their biggest rivals. We're talking Amazon, Apple, Intel, Microsoft, Netflix, all of them. They all joined, and they had one single shared goal.
To develop the next generation video standard, AV1, and make sure it was, from the ground up, explicitly and legally.
Royalty-free. That's the magic word. It means any developer anywhere can build it into their product and not worry about getting a massive legal bill from a patent holder years later. It just lowers the barrier to innovation completely.
But this promise, royalty-free, is exactly where the conflict with the FFmpeg community really starts. Because they are, let's say, deeply skeptical.
And for very good reason. They have scars.
Mm.
So even with Google presenting VP8 and VP9 as these open free standards, the FFmpeg community, they pumped the brakes.
Hard. Why? What's the history there that made them so cautious?
Their entire history is one of legal caution. FFmpeg has this long-standing policy. They refuse to include support for any patented codec unless the legal protection is absolutely ironclad. Because they've seen what happens when it's not.
And the precedent was a codec called Thera, right?
Thera is the ghost that haunts this entire story.
Yes.
It was another early attempt at an open-source, royalty-free video codec. It was promoted as safe to use.
But it wasn't.
It ended up being targeted by patent infringement lawsuits, and the group behind many of them was, you guessed it, MPEG LA. Now, for a volunteer project like FFmpeg, you don't even have to lose a patent lawsuit for it to kill you. The legal fees alone will bankrupt you.
So they learned their lesson. They weren't going to walk into another legal trap, even if Google was the one setting it.
Exactly. So when Google came to them with VP8 and a patent waiver declaration, the FFmpeg developers, particularly the lead developer at the time, Michael Niedermayer, were publicly very worried.
And why wasn't a waiver from Google good enough?
Because a promise from Google only protects you from Google. It doesn't protect you from a third-party patent holder. Some patent troll or another consortium could emerge from the woodwork with an obscure patent that they claim VP8 infringes upon.
And suddenly the entire open source project, with its 10 billion daily executions, is at risk.
The entire ecosystem is at risk. And this wasn't just, developers being paranoid. Their caution was completely validated by outside academic research.
Right. The 2018 Cambridge University study, Patent Risks in Open Video Codecs.
That study was huge. It looked at the whole landscape, and the conclusion was just damningly clear. It found that while AV1, the Alliance's new codec, had a much stronger patent defense structure than VP8 did. But no modern video codec is 100% free of legal risk. The patent system is just too opaque, too complex. There's always a chance someone holds a submarine patent you don't know about.
Wow. So even today, with all this effort, there's no such thing as a perfectly safe open standard. It confirms FFmpeg wasn't being difficult. They were being responsible stewards of this critical global utility.
Absolutely. Their job is to protect the viability of this thing that is used, again, billions of times a day.
Okay, so let's pivot to the present day. Let's talk about AV1, because technologically, it's a home run, right? It's just flat out better than everything that came before.
Oh, absolutely. It's a triumph of engineering. Launched in 2018, it offers compression that is just. It's vastly superior to H.264, and it's a significant improvement over Google's own VP9.
And that's why everyone is jumping on board. YouTube, Netflix, Meta, Discord, they've all adopted it.
Of course. It saves them a fortune on bandwidth costs, and it gives you, the user, a better experience. Less buffering, higher quality.
So if AV1 is royalty-free and it's technically the best, that sounds like a win-win for everyone. What's the problem? Why should we care if Google is the one pushing for its adoption?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. And the problem, the catch, lies in the cost of that incredible efficiency.
The financial cost.
No, the computational cost. The dirty secret of AV1 is that it is extremely costly and time-consuming to encode. It requires a massive amount of CPU power compared to older codecs.
Okay, break that down for us. Why is it so much harder to create an AV1 file?
Okay, so think of an older standard like H.264 as a quick sketch artist. It looks at a frame of video, figures out the general color and motion in big blocks, and compresses it fast.
Got it.
AV1 is. It's a hyper-detailed oil painter. It uses these incredibly complex multi-layered algorithms to look at every single pixel, every possible motion vector, every tiny optimization it can find to squeeze out every last possible byte.
Yeah.
That extreme mathematical complexity just requires exponentially more processing power to create the final file.
I see. So watching an AV1 video on your phone is easy, but making that video in the first place is the bottleneck.
That is the bottleneck. And that massive computing requirement is precisely where Google steps back into the driver's seat and creates this new dynamic, a dynamic of dependence.
A dependence on their resources.
Exactly. This huge encoding cost means that FFmpeg, a project run by volunteers with limited resources, simply cannot keep up. They can't develop encoding software that's as fast or efficient as what a corporate giant can. It's not a software problem, it's a resource problem.
So FFmpeg is like a brilliant local mechanic trying to tune a Formula One car with, standard wrenches.
That's a perfect analogy. And Google is the Formula One team. They have poured millions, maybe billions, into optimized encoding. They use custom-designed silicon chips, their tensor processing units, or TPUs, which are built for this kind of work.
And they develop their own software, too.
They developed advanced software encoders, Libaum and SVT AV1, which were engineered with a level of resources that no community project could ever dream of mustering. So they're leading not just on the standard itself, but on the implementation.
Right. And then comes the masterstroke. In 2022, Google makes this very public, very generous donation of key optimization code to the FFmpeg project.
Right. Specifically to improve AV1 performance in FFmpeg.
And on the surface, that looks fantastic, a great act of open source stewardship. But when you connect the dots...
It serves a profound strategic purpose. It ensures the massive, widespread adoption of Google's standard. By giving FFmpeg the keys to the kingdom, these hard-won optimizations, Google instantly solved the performance bottleneck for the entire world. And in doing so, they cemented themselves as the primary authority on how to actually use AV1 efficiently.
We are replacing one kind of control with another. This is the core takeaway from our sources, and it's so powerful.
There's a quote from a Mozilla engineer in 2021 that just captures this tension perfectly. He said, "We are replacing an oligopoly of patents by a monopoly of implementation."
A monopoly of implementation, that's it.
That is the crux of the entire issue.
So Google successfully broke the financial chains of the patent consortiums, but in the process, they... maybe inadvertently, maybe strategically, they centralized all the know-how and resources needed to actually use the new standard at scale.
You're no longer locked in by legal fees. Now you're dependent on computational power and access to Google-optimized code. It's not a war anymore. It's this delicate, symbiotic relationship that's defined by corporate realpolitik.
Right. Google needs FFmpeg's global footprint, those 10 billion daily executions, to make AV1 the undisputed king.
And FFmpeg, conversely, now needs Google's resources and their technical optimizations to stay relevant in a world that demands these hyper-efficient but hyper-complex codecs.
So who wins?
Well, users win. We get better quality video. Creators win. They get royalty-free tools. But that original goal, the dream of a truly open, decentralized internet where standards are governed by pure consensus, not by corporate firepower.
That goal is still a long way off.
It's still pretty elusive, yeah. So if you're listening to this deep dive, the next time you stream a 4K movie without it buffering, just remember this complex dance that's happening behind the scenes, this balance of corporate strategy, patent law, and incredible open source volunteerism.
And the cycle isn't over.
Not by a long shot.
Yeah.
We know the Alliance for Open Media is already deep into development on AV2, the successor to AV1. The whole process of setting a standard and then optimizing the implementation. It's all starting over again.
Which raises a really important final thought for you to consider. The history of video shows us that even standards that are labeled open can very quickly become dominated by a few powerful, resource-rich companies.
So the question is this: what concrete steps can the decentralized development community, and by extension you, the user who demands these higher and higher standards, What can we do to ensure that new technologies like AV2 stay truly inclusive?
Yeah.
How do we prevent them from just becoming another more subtle means of corporate control?
The vigilance required to keep the web truly open is a continuous effort. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.